Morning, guys. Happy Tuesday. We're going to read chapter 21 today and maybe start chapter 22. We'll see how it goes. Okay. What's going on? Brody asked. But Brody had a terrible idea that he knew exactly what was going on. What's going on, tough guy, is that you're about to lose your soul. Darkly stepped slowly forward as he spoke. There's no getting away this time, thanks to Patsy. Brody backed up as Darkly approached, but he knew there was nowhere to go. He was in the middle of the bridge with the hounds at either end. Patsy? He looked at the cat in disbelief. Finally, Patsy met his eyes, but only for a moment. Then her eyes flickered away. I'm almost out of shine, Mutt. What did you think I was going to do? Just go dark again? Patsy tried to spit the words. She did. She tried to make her words angry, tried to make her voice tough and hard. She did try. But Patsy, she failed. Under that thin layer of anger, that painted-on toughness, her voice just sounded sad and sick. Brody took another step back, looking desperately around for an escape path that he knew wasn't there. What do you mean go dark again? You've still got some shine left, Patsy. It's not too late. You think that's her shine? Darkly scoffed. Now she took it, just like we're going to take yours. Ripped it off a little gray kitty she helped us corner. Cute little thing. Of course, that little kitty's gone dark now. Last I saw her, she was trying to tear some shine off rats in the alleys downtown. Thanks to Patsy there. I didn't make her go dark, Patsy snarled, her tail swirling. I took just enough. She had plenty still when I walked away. Yeah, you walked away all right once you got yours. Didn't want to watch us finish what you had started, huh? Thanks for serving her up, though, just like this one. Brody suddenly spun and darted to the side, trying to get around the hounds behind him. They were ready, though, and cut him off with bared teeth and snapping jaws. Brody backed up to the guardrail at the side of the bridge. The circle of hounds tightened around him. Patsy still stood where she had been at the beginning, back under the street lamp. How'd you follow me? Brody asked, stalling for time. Tuck took back all my shine. We didn't need to follow you, Darkly said. We followed the cat. Realization washed over Brody, the car hopping before the fight in the alley. You took some of yours when you were in that car together? Took? Hardly. She gave it to us, man, so we could follow you. Not too quick, are you? She ain't with you, buddy. She's with us. We take down the ghost. She gets her cut of the shine. Everybody wins, except you, of course. Brody slashed his head from side to side, spinning and dancing to keep an eye on his attackers. I'm not going down without a fight, he warned. Darkly bared his white teeth in a salivating smile. I'm counting on it. It's way more fun that way. But you can't run. And we can't, die. So the ending of this one's already written. Well, there was a certain kind of sureness in Darkly's voice. In Darkly's words. They felt true there on that dark bridge. But endings are funny things. You never know how they're going to go until they go. Just like beginnings. Believe me. And Brody was a swirling storm of emotions. Panic that he was surrounded with no way to escape. Fear of the hounds moving in around him ever closer, and that horrible feeling of his soul being ripped away, and a cold, burning fury at Patsy and her betrayal. But then, as he stood, surrounded by evil, something happened. New snow, icy and delicate as stars slipping from the sky, began to fall, like it was blown from a mountain-top, maybe by an angel. The snow began to fall all around them, as soft and as quiet as ash of feathers, but cleaner. And for some reason that hushed snow calmed and clarified the storm inside Brody. Who knows why, but it did. He raised his nose and looked at the flakes fluttering down through the streetlights. He didn't wag his tail, because he didn't feel happy. He felt sureness. He looked back to Darkly's black, starving eyes. You can have my soul, he said. What? You can have my soul, Brody said again. All of it. The hounds stopped their slow circling. Patsy had been looking away the whole time, but at Brody's words, her eyes snapped back to him. What's your game? Darkly snarled. No game, you can have it. You just have to let me go. What? Let me go. To my boy. You can follow me. Let me go do what I came to do, please, and then I'll give you every last drop of my shine, I promise. The cat was right. You are an idiot. Let you go? Never. You're ours, Mutt. Your boy is on his own. Darkly took another step closer. His black eyes were dull, bottomless. His teeth were ready for the bite. His voice dropped low to a scratchy rumble that was something between a whisper and a growl. And what do you think you could do, anyway? You couldn't help him when you were alive. You sure can't help him now. You're alone with your fate, and your boy is alone with his words. Those words. They jabbed at Brody's heart with sharp little stabs. They shivered his soul with coldness. But those words and that stabbing and that shivering did nothing to weaken Brody's sureness. No, believe me, they only made it stronger. Because Brody's heart, it would never retreat from the last ground it was standing on. And the last ground it was standing on was Aiden. Aiden, his boy. The boy of wide-mouthed laughter, the boy of secret bedtime tears, the boy of fierce hugs and thrown balls and behind-the-ear scratches, the boy with the broken nose and the black eye who only wanted one thing, a picture of him and his dog. I'll never let anyone hurt my boy. The words, the thought, the feeling of that pure unbreakable truth ran through him like liquid iron. He felt his muscles tighten and his eyes narrow, his teeth shine and his claws flex, his whole hopeless self get ready to fight for his boy. And that feeling, the feeling of desperate will, of full-souled determination to protect his boy, it wasn't a new feeling. It felt familiar. The mud, the fear, the anger, the cursing, the thrown can. Brave and beautiful Aiden standing up to the monster to protect Brody. Then the hit. Aiden crumpling. Brody terrified. It was all coming back to him. Trembling, the monster looming, lumbering closer. His arm was raised, his hand tight in a mean fist. And then that feeling, the same one he just had facing down darkly. I'll never let anyone hurt my boy. And then Brody, running. Not away from Aiden, no. Running towards the monster. Teeth bared. Heroic, heart pure. His teeth had sunk into the monster's leg before the monster's hand could come down. The monster had roared and stumbled back. Brody had pressed forward, lips pulled back, ears tucked low. The monster looked down at his ripped jeans for one ugly moment, and then his eyes slid with seething fury up to Brody, and with a growl, the red-faced monster lunged. Yes, the monster attacked, but with his boy at his back, Brody had met him. Aiden screamed, "Brody! Brody!" Then it was a blur. There had been shouts from the monster, whines and growls and barks from Brody, cries from the boy. They had been kicking feet, punching hands, and snapping teeth. But Aiden would not leave Brody, and Brody would not leave Aiden. And then he'd been sent spinning and yelping. He crashed against the wall, and Aiden had screamed. And he lay there, hearing his boy crying, unable to get up, unable to help him. And then the monster was standing over him, panting. He raised a heavy boot high. Aiden cried out one last time, "No, please!" And the boot had come crashing down, and the memory ended. He hadn't run away. He hadn't abandoned his boy. He'd fought for him. Of course he had. He'd fought for him, and he'd died for him. And Brody, he'd do it all again, a million times forever. Brody raised his head. He thought of Tuck, brave Tuck, Tuck who fought, Tuck who battled, Tuck who never wavered. And he thought of Aiden, and he remembered how his boy had fought for him, and he stayed with him and asked him for pictures to remember him still. His boy. And then Brody said 4 words. He said them quiet. "You," he said, "me, together, always." Darkly heard the words. He didn't understand them, but there was no time for Darkly to wonder about them. If there was even any room left for wonder in that dog's dark heart. Because with that last word, with that last whispered always, Brody charged into battle. We'll start chapter 2. We won't finish it. Brody didn't run at the closest hound, or the smallest. No, because Brody was full of sureness, and full of anger, and he was full of Tuck, and he was full of Aiden. So Brody, he readied his jaws and ran straight at Darkly's waiting maw. He ran with his sure heart right at the beast himself. Brody's attack didn't take Darkly by surprise. Darkly had done this before, and he knew that prey is cornered will always at the end lash out. It's just how these things go. But not being surprised is not the same thing as being ready. Brody leapt with all of the speed his spirit body could give. His soul sparkled as he flew at the dark beast. Darkly stepped back, and he swung his head and snapped with his jaws and swiped with his claws. But Brody's teeth found fur and held it. Brody whipped his neck, tearing at the monster. Darkly snarled, Darkly howled. Finally, Darkly whimpered. Brody felt the other hounds close in all around him. He felt their teeth on his back. But he didn't let go, and then he felt it. The nothingness of Darkly, the emptiness, the blank blackness of the creature with no soul left. Nothing more than Darkly could lose. All that Brody could do to Darkly was give him pain. And Brody, he didn't want to. So Brody let Darkly go. He gave Darkly one last tug and chew and spat him out and spun it, all teeth and anger and sureness, shaking the hounds off him, and then he stood once again at their center. Darkly had stumbled and Brody had released him. Little puppy is not playing nice, he said. Darkly's whiteless eyes had no sparkle, no soul, but they weren't empty. Brody looked into the eyes of the other hounds. He didn't see what he was hoping to see. There was no wariness now that they had seen his anger. There was no caution now that they had seen his fight. Their eyes, like Darkly's, were brighter now, shinier, hungrier. He had shown them his spirit, his hope, his heart. Brody had shown them his life, and had made their lifeless mouths water. You ready, Patsy? Darkly asked. A deal's a deal. You get first take. We'll hold him down and you get yours. There was no answer. Darkly looked over his shoulder. Nah, Patsy said after a moment. I don't want none of that dog soul. She stood up and gave Brody one last long look. It's too bright for me. Then she turned and walked away through the falling snow, back the way she'd come. Suit yourself, Darkly said with a wagging tail. More for us. Darkly's head swung back to Brody. His mouth opened into a toothy grin, and the hounds swarmed. Darkly surged forward, and Brody lunged to meet him. But before their jaws met, Brody felt two sets of teeth sink into him on either side. And that's when Darkly hit him. Darkly stood over Brody, his paws on his chest, and snapped quickly and vicious at Brody's neck. Brody slashed his head from side to side, blocking Darkly's bites, panic rising in his throat. The other hounds were on them too, nipping and tearing at his body. Then the tearing. The pain rose, the agony, the ripping of his soul. One, then two, then three, then four, then five, then six. 6 pieces of his soul torn away. Brody felt each one as it left him, felt hope leave his heart. This would be how it would end. This was how Brody would lose his soul, his life, his boy. If he didn't break free, all would be lost. Brody focused all of his energy, all that he had left, on one last effort. He didn't jump up or charge at Darkly or try to lurch forward and shake the dogs loose. Brody gathered all the strength and rolled, hard and tight and fast, a wild, twisting roll in the snow. Darkly's paws slipped off his chest. One, then two, then 3 tearing mouths lost their grip. Brody was surrounded, but he kept his paws moving, spinning and dancing and sidestepping, keeping each hungry mouth away as they came at him. He felt jaws close around his tail, and he spun, shaking loose. He felt more teeth latch onto his shoulder and tore free with a snarling snap of his own, and he kept moving. He was battling his way, step by tortured step, across the bridge, toward his boy. Because Brody, he had decided something on that snow-speckled darkness of the bridge. If he was going to lose his soul, he was going to lose it like this, fighting. It was hopeless, it was, believe me. Brody, that good dog, never had a chance. Even as he fought, even as he bit and battled and bled, for every inch he could make towards his boy, he was losing. Brody was getting darker and darker and darker, but there was no surrender in that dog. Right up until the end, right up until the very end, there was no surrender. Finally, he found himself backed against the concrete side of the bridge. The hounds stood in a half circle around him. Their eyes were still black, but around each of them were swirling bits of Brody's soul, his shine. They had more of it now than he did. But shine, it's not the same as heart. They had more shimmer, but Brody at the end had still more of everything that mattered. It's time, Darkly said. His voice was grim. Taking someone's soul is forever dark business, even to the darkest. Brody looked him in the eye. Will I still be able to help my boy? When I'm like you? No, Darkly answered, but you were never going to. Anyway, another car passed. Brody looked at his shine out of the corners of his eyes. 6. He had 6 lights left. He would lose them, he knew. But Brody, he didn't care about that. Not much, anyway. My boy, he said. He said it softly. Your boy, Darkly said, has already forgotten you. I promise. They always do. Now you should forget about him. It makes it easier. Never, he said. Always, Darkly answered. But Darkly was wrong about that. The best hearts, the bravest souls, the strongest loves, they always remember, and they always remembered. Believe me. The hounds closed in. Only a few lights left, Darkly growled at them, and I get the last one. Brody bared his teeth. He would lose, he knew, but he would lose fighting. Just as the hounds leapt, just at that moment when their dark bodies launched at him, Brody saw something. Just barely, just a flicker behind the beasts coming at him. Something flying through the air, sailing his way. A shadow darting out from the passing car. And they were on him, and he was fighting, slashing to keep off their attack. And in those first furious seconds, Brody knew that he was done. But there were too many, and he was too trapped. But then, in all of the madness and mayhem, Brody heard something. A sound that didn't belong in a fight to the death between one good dog and four bad ones. It was a howling, a screeching, a hissing, and a snarling. It was the battle cry of a cat. And that's the end of chapter 22. Right, so again, make sure that you have all your missing work turned in, especially your letter, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.